We knew Abbey was very sick, and we knew that she was never going to have quote-unquote normal life. You know, as a parent, I think you always want what's best for your child. So we were getting the gait trainer. We were hoping Abbey was going to be able to walk someday. We were doing the braces and every doctor's appointment under the sun. And at a certain point, I think we just accepted.
That's the word I was going to use too. That
what
period of
it
acceptance.
was.
Welcome to A Place of Yes. I'm your host, Heather Strader. A podcast about how I moved through my darkest hour. And all I can say is I dug deep, figured out where I was and where I wanted to be. And for me, the answer was in a place of yes. Welcome to the show. In today's episode, we talk with Tabitha, Abbey's mom. And Tabitha is just this really kind and generous person who, no matter how you meet her, she is just trying to help you and make your day better. It was such a joy to have this conversation. She shared a lot of anecdotes about her job at Stewart's, which for those of you who don't know what Stewart's is, it's a Capital Region iconic institution, really. They are a gas station, meet coffee store, meet best place for milkshakes. They have everything. But she shares about how she goes into her job. Her job is to help people, and she does that. And she does it every day with a smile on her face. And to me, it's just such a reminder of how we present ourselves and who we can be to others, regardless of what we've got going on. It just was a really uplifting episode, and I hope you enjoy it. But first, it's time for our review of the week. Heather, I've always been in awe and so inspired by your strength, the way you've given so much of yourself to other families in need. I'm sure this podcast will be a true blessing to so many people. Keep up the good, hard work. I know Jake is smiling down on you every single moment of every single day. I loved reading that review because it came across so genuine. I love when people recognize how important it is to me that Jake feel proud of me and that most of what I do is for him. So I love that connection between the work we do that makes me feel so good, but also for the reason why I do it. Today we have Tabitha with us, Abbey's mom. We have been working with Tab and Abbey since 2013. They live right here in Saratoga Springs, and we have really gotten to know each other in a variety of different ways. Can you tell me a little bit about you and your family?
Yeah. So I'm Tabitha. My husband is Bo. We have an 18-year-old son, Andrew, and then Abbey is now 15. She was born at 33 weeks, placental abruption, no blood flow through the umbilical cord. Nobody thought Abbey was going to make it in the beginning. You know, her discharge papers told me that she was probably going to die at home, and here we are 15 years later. Overall diagnosis is severe cerebral palsy. There's quite a large spectrum for cerebral palsy. You know, Abbey is on the more severe spectrum. She doesn't have any head control. She's fed through a tube in her belly. She has a seizure disorder, knock on wood. We have not had any seizures now in probably like 3 years.
That's amazing.
She did tick up there for a little while. We couldn't figure it out, but we tweaked some meds and got her back on track, thankfully, because those are scary things.
Seizures, I think.
Even when you've seen them in the past, they're just...
Every time they can take your breath away.
Every time. That minute or two, it seems like it lasts 5 hours. It's the worst. But other than that, Abbey is a happy little girl. She loves to smile. She loves interacting with people. She has her own way of communication.
So when you just said that Abbey is 15, that sort of blew my mind. I mean, I know that, you know, and Ethan and Andrew are the same age, so I know that we have sons that are 18. But Abbey being 15.
She's 15.
15. So we started together in 2013. So that is over 10 years ago.
She was a little peanut then.
A little peanut. That's wild to me. So let me tell you a little bit about how we got to meet Abbey and Tabitha. Jake's Help from Heaven is an organization founded by my husband and I. It's dedicated to creating opportunities for those with disabilities to thrive. We founded Jake's Help from Heaven in 2011 after our 4-year-old son, Jake, passed. How did you first learn about Jake's?
So Andrew was in elementary school, and we held a benefit for Abbey, like a spaghetti dinner at Maple Ave Firehouse. Oh, I cannot remember. Trisha? I believe she saw the flyer and then called me and was like, have you ever heard of Jake's Help from Heaven? And I'm like, no.
I forgot about that, how that came together. So that's interesting. So Trish, who you speak of, she and I, when I moved here from Boston, she was one of the first moms that I met. she's one of the few people in Saratoga who knew Jake before he had a seizure. Like, she knew Jake when he was absolutely healthy, vibrant,
Oh, really?
young boy. This is sort of a small world. The night that Jake had his seizure when he was 8 months old was the night of Ethan's second birthday party. And there is this picture of Trish holding Jake, who was just he almost like stole the show from Ethan at his party. He was just, those of you who've seen Jake, he just had these like great brown eyes and big cheeks. And he was just the life of this party. And Trish, one of my favorite pictures from that, it's kind of our before picture, was Trish holding Jake.
Oh.
Literally hours before he out of nowhere had a seizure.
Yeah.
I didn't put that together, but that makes it even more special. I think. I was wondering if we could talk a little bit about the chairs that we have. We've worked together in a lot of different capacities, but can we talk a little bit about those special tomato? What are they? The soft touch sitter. They have such a strange name.
Special
but they're
tomato soft touch sitter. Yes, they're amazing chair. It's literally, I don't know how to describe it. It's hard configuring, but it's soft to the touch. It helps keep Abby's spine aligned. It's got a base. We wheel her around all over the place. We get her in and out with her lift, with it now that she's so much bigger. We take them everywhere we go. If we're going to be going to the lake for the day, we take that with us. It's just so much more comfortable than that stiff wheelchair. And unfortunately, it's not something insurance covers because it's a want, I guess, not a need.
I was going to say, it's one of those things they don't deem as like medically necessary.
Right.
But if you're actually in the trenches, it is.
It's the best chair. I mean, her therapist back in the day was the one that told us about it. Obviously, when Abbey was a lot smaller, they were a huge difference in price. So, for like Christmas, we'd get her one or whatever. And our lives would have been totally different without that chair. They are the best thing ever. And I hope Abbey doesn't get any bigger because size 5 is the biggest they make. We got to have a talk with them.
Every time I think of that chair, actually, I think of Abbey because we have so many fantastic pictures. And every time she's in it, she's in control of it. She is just smiling and she's laughing. And even when her limbs are kind of moving and stuff, she is in it. She just loves that chair. I think the first one we got, maybe like a size 2 or 3. Every, I don't know, maybe 18 months or so, we get an application. And at the board level, it's one of those things where it's like, wait, we've bought this before. There's always a couple, board members who are like, wait, and what we end up talking about, and this may sound odd, what a gift it is that Abbey is still growing and making so much progress. And just the fact that she's outgrowing some of these chairs, and the fact that she is even, we were talking about earlier, but like the wear and tear, like she's hard on these chairs.
She's hard on these chairs,
but that's because she is, and she can be, and movement. And I don't know. I think these chairs are great. We were thrilled. Although, like you, I was like, oh no, this is the last size. So we just recently, I think at our December meeting, approved the size 5. So we are waiting for that to come in, but I can't wait for that delivery because those are always one of my favorite deliveries.
Yeah, it's been a while since you've seen her.
It has been.
She's grown a lot in the last couple of years. She's a beast now.
She is a beast. It's unbelievable. I've talked with other moms. We talk about the resilience of our kids, and it's different than our resilience for sure. I used to say this with Jake, right? Like they get up in the morning and they live their best life.
They really do.
Sometimes I can't get up in the morning and live my best life, and I've got plenty. I think of Abbey a lot because she has that amazing smile.
She definitely does. Her smile's worth $1 million.
It's worth $1 million. It's just so sincere too. It's not just a reaction. It's like a feeling with her.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit, if you're comfortable with that, like coming home with her and them saying she was probably going to die at home.
She spent 71 days in the NICU. It was all of her first holidays. She was born in October, so all of her first holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, everything was in the NICU. We had done the rooming in room.
Okay.
Where you have to, because any child that's coming home on equipment the parents need to take care of them with the equipment, but the nurses are still there. She turned blue on us. So she bought herself another 10 days in the NICU.
Not going home yet.
Oh, God, I don't think I slept much at all in the beginning.
And Andrew was little.
He was little. He was 3.5, I think, right around there. To look back now, I'm like, I don't know how I ever survived that. It's a constant calling the doctor, trying to worry about. You worried about so much,
and
so much
scared.
Little things sometimes, and you're scared of everything. And
I remember that feeling of being scared.
Yes.
Because, we're similar in the sense that we had an older child first. So you sort of know what it's like to be a mom and to be a mom of a fairly typical kid. And then all of a sudden you've got this medically fragile, you don't know. And I just remember when we got out of the hospital after Jake had started seizing, and we were 117 days at Boston Children's, I just remember being like, I remember not trusting my instincts, like having to learn to trust my instincts again. With Ethan, I could just be his mom. And even if you made a bad choice, it was still life went on. And I just remember that feeling. And it took me a while to get comfortable with that feeling or to shift it. But it was just, wait, if I make a mistake, this could be terrible,
And it's different. In the beginning, I mean, we took her to every doctor under the sun, and the doctor, whatever the doctor said was like a Bible of the way we lived our life. And then when this doctor said something different than this doctor, it was, oh my God, what do we do? And, over the years, we've learned that we keep Abbey pretty healthy and happy. So mom and dad are the best in regards to what is needed for Abbey. And thankfully, we have condensed her team of doctors. We don't see nearly all the specialists that we used to, but the ones that she does see truly care about her and are connected to her, are invested in making Abbey live her best life.
I mean, I think what you just touched on is so important because there is that instinct where you forget to make your own decision, right? Like you're just like, oh, they said this, so I'm going to do this. But then when you have that moment, that switch of like, wait a minute.
Yes.
I'm still her mom. I still know what's good for her. Like I can... And then you, as your family unit, it's so important, and you're totally capable of giving, giving her all the things. You don't need someone to give you a script. Like what was best for Jake, and I'm sure what's best for Abbey is not always what the doctors are saying. Right? Because there's actually like, oh, do this, do this, do this. Or you know what? Maybe we're not going to do 5 days of therapy in a row. Maybe we're going to do 4, and on that 5th day, we're going to snuggle on the couch and watch movies.
Yep.
Because that means something too. It's The other thing I wanted to touch on with you a little bit was, how do you think Abbey has impacted Andrew? I talk a lot sometimes about Ethan, and it's a little different because, Ethan lost Jake when he was young, and there's a different weight on that. But I always think that there's this compassionate side to Ethan, and maybe it always would have been there. But I tend to think that being Jake's older brother really molded him and formed him in is an important part of who he is.
1,000%. I mean, anybody that knows Andrew and comes in contact with Andrew always says what a compassionate, caring kid he is. From the time he was, 3-4 years old, because he was trucking to the NICU with us every day, it taught him to be a different kind of person. And he missed out on a lot. There was times where, no, you can't do this because we can't take Abbey, or, just different things throughout the
Or you can't go to this birthday party because we're in Boston for a doctor's visit. Or just things.
Or,
things,
5-day-a-week sport is, dad's working and mom has to bundle Abbey up to bring. It was sometimes it was a give and take. And unfortunately, Andrew, and I'm sure, Ethan in a regard, definitely missed out on some stuff. You would never know it to look at them, I think. And I don't know Ethan that well, but I know him a little bit. And Andrew's definitely, he wants to go into counseling. He's like, not necessarily kids, like me that have a sibling, but he's like, I just want to be able to understand that like people can talk, and that's what has made a huge difference.
They're just, I don't want to use the term well-adjusted. That's why I'm sort of like pausing, because that's not, that implies that there's a reason, that there's sort of a negative if you have to be well-adjusted. But they really, it's like they take the responsibility so seriously, and they understand in a way that I think, a lot of 18-year-olds certainly don't. And back to, when they were 14, 15, when Ethan was 5, 6, when they're young and they have to look at things differently. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I've always had this kind of thought that because of Jake, I am a much better person than I was before.
1,000%.
And I think that impact rubs off on so many people. Mm-hmm. You really have to strip through the bullshit, really, because you just have to be, it just teaches you what's important in a hard way, but in a very real way.
Mm-hmm. 1,000%. I always say that Abbey's made us better people, all of us, all around.
Kind of leads us a little bit. So the name of this podcast is A Place of Yes. Mm-hmm. And that came from sort of me, after Jake passed, it was just, there were a couple of things, but A, it's horrible, right? It's your worst nightmare. It is the thing you are most scared of. And then it happened. And it was in those early hours, we talked about what could we do? What are we going to do with all these lessons? Like, I was so nervous about not being able to talk about him anymore. Like, even oddly, I just was like, you just want to talk about your kids. And now Now, what if I can't? And that's sort of where Jake's Help from Heaven was born. It was born from those days after of like, what do I do with all this information? How do we take these lessons and make it better? But it also came from, I still have to be a parent. Like I still have to, Ethan's a 5-year-old little boy and he needs his mom.
Right.
And we started, I would always kind of be like, all right, I'm coming from a place of yes. Like I would drive it home a little bit because in my darkest hours, I was not like, yes was the farthest thing from me, right? Like I just was like, do you want to get out of bed? No. Do you what do you want to do? And I didn't want to do anything. So it sort of started way back then. It became something we talked about at the board meetings. It really became something where as we sit in that table and we have a really great group that comes together with the applications and is really thoughtful about the decision and what is the fiscally responsible thing to do and what is the right thing to do and is it medically convenient or is it medically necessary? We have all these conversations. But I would always say, if someone's asking us for something and they have done the work that we need to, then we should say yes. It is not our place to tell people what they need. It is our place to help them get there. I would always just say, we come from a place of yes. Do you come from a place of yes? It's such a funny question if it's not something that you're thinking about often, but I
definitely feel like it's become that. And I think, having a child like Abbey has molded that even more. Plain and simple fact is everything we've ever asked from you guys, you've said yes to. Saying yes is a good thing. And
it just feels good, right?
Yes.
It does. It feels good. And that doesn't mean that it's always the right answer, but when it is, I think for us, it's what we try to do. Let's talk a little bit more about some of the other things we've done with Abbey. People will say to us at Jake's Help from Heaven, they're like, oh, what do you say yes to? What do you say no to? And my standard answer is it's not our place. Like if people can fill out our application, have the documents that we need to sort of verify it, then they need what they need. And I remember there was those mouth moisturizer.
It was mouth moisturizer, yes.
And I remember it was I think it's the only time we've ever gotten that request. But I was like, who are we to judge if this is what she needs? And I actually knew those because when Jake was in the hospital those 117 days, they weren't that sage green ones. They were pink ones. But they're just these. Can you talk a little bit about what they are? Because people are probably listening being like, what are they talking about?
There's two parts to it. There's the mouth swabs and then there's Sage mouth moisturizer. They use it a lot on cancer patients that can't swallow anymore, at least to cleanse their mouth and stuff. Abby's tube fed. She's high risk for aspiration, so she can't take anything by mouth, but her mouth gets dry and yucky and gross. So we can't just give her some water to cleanse in there because she'll aspirate on it. She actually had a swallow therapist who told us about that. I never knew anything about it before. And it's this very mild, minty, refreshing ointment that you just put in your mouth, put on her tongue, on the mouth swab. It's huge. Her lips will go from dry and yucky to using that, and it's it's just such a refreshing look. Like she just stepped out and put her lip gloss on.
I like that is a little bit of what we do too at Jake's, right? It's not just about the chair or the equipment that, we talk a lot about medically necessary. Well, sometimes it's medically convenient, right? Sometimes it just makes everyone, that just makes her more comfortable.
Yes. I think the first time I met you, we borrowed a gait trainer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So for those that don't know, a gait trainer is this piece of equipment where they can take steps assisted. So Jake's Help from Heaven also has an equipment exchange program, which is basically we have a storeroom that has equipment that people have either outgrown or no longer use or for whatever reason have donated to us. And then we open that up to our families so that they can borrow something. And sometimes it's used as before you start the process of ordering something. It's just a trial.
Huge. It's huge.
If we have it, keep it for as long as you want. See if it makes a difference. And then at least you're making a request either from Jake's or from insurance or from ever with a little bit of background. So I don't remember that, but that's great. I love that you use it.
Yep. And I think we ended up trying it out and realizing it really wasn't, Abbey wasn't going to be able to use that equipment enough to go through the process of insurance or through Jake's help for it. We ended up deciding not to get her one, but
which is just as important as figuring out if it works.
Right.
Honestly.
Right.
Sometimes more important.
Right. It might not have been that time, Heather. It's going to make me teary-eyed right now. I think one point I was I think I gave you a hug and was just I don't know how you do what you do. Like, I could not be as strong as you in that situation. Maybe I could be.
No, I think that's
but
always, it's hard to know till you're in it, right? You know,
and to constantly be involved in children like Jake and Abbey, and unfortunately there is the sad stories where the person or child passes.
Like, I sometimes think I was put on this earth, and it took me a long time to figure it out, or all of these experiences, but I was here for this. Like, this is who I was meant to be and what I was meant to be doing. And I hate that I had to figure this out at this loss. Like, I have always said this too, I would take being a shittier person or a shittier version of myself and still have Jake 100 times over. But I feel like the best way to honor him is to do this work. And there is nothing I love more than visiting with Abbey or Esme or Milana or any of these kids that I've just gotten to know for so long. Mm-hmm. When I see Abbey at 15, it just gives me this glimpse of what Jake would be like now, right? He would be a senior in high school. And I sometimes picture Jake before the illness. Like, what if he was what if it was just Ethan part 2? You know what I mean? Like, you don't expect your kid to die no matter how sick they are. I think that has been, I don't want to say it's a common misconception, but it certainly has come up where, especially after he died, where people were like, well, you must have known. They say stupid things. No, we didn't know. We did not think this was going to happen. We thought that we were going to keep him alive and keep living our best version of this life that we were in.
Right.
We just didn't see it coming, right? And maybe we should have, but we didn't, because you live day to day, and you take those moments and you do the best you can with them.
And I think, just to the other people that you have always, you're in connection with and you've helped and stuff. And I know when Abbey had her first really bad seizure and we had out of the blue and we were in Albany Med and intubated and everything all over again, I think you posted on the Facebook, Abbey needs prayers, and just these hundreds of people were just, out there praying for Abbey too. And I mean, let's just say Jake has touched so many lives in so many different ways.
No, I think it's what he was meant to do, right? It was a short life, but a big life.
Yeah. In the beginning, like we knew Abbey was very sick, and we knew that she was never going to have quote unquote normal life. As a parent, I think you always want what's best for your child. So we were getting the gait trainer. We were hoping Abbey was going to be able to walk someday. We were doing the braces and every doctor's appointment under the sun. And at a certain point, I think we just accepted.
That's the word I was going to use too. That
what it was. Yeah. It was a punch in the gut. But I've also learned from that experience, Abbey's beginning of life, to not get punched in the gut anymore. As a parent of a child like Abbey, we know she's probably not going to outlive us. And it's a conversation we have had. And that's a very, very hard pill to swallow. And even when the day comes, it's not going to mean that we're ready for it or whatever. But you learn to just accept. And, we actually just hired a new aide for Abbey, thank God. And the other night, I'm just talking to her and doing stuff. And she's like, oh, my God. She's like, you're amazing. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, well, you're talking to me and you're getting Abbey's feed ready and you're doing this and you're cooking dinner. And I'm like, it's just my life.
It is what we do.
I don't know how else to be. And she was like, no, I give you kudos. And I'm like, well, you're going to get there. We're going to train you right.
And so, I think that acceptance that you talk about is, in my mind, the same as this place of yes, right? Like, I just gave it this sort of name, but that's the moment, I think.
Yep.
Because there is that moment of a little bit of like denial, and nope, she's going to walk. Nope, she's going to do this. We can do this, and this doctor is going to give us. And because I remember like after the seizure and after the hospital stay being like, okay, so we're doing PT 5 days a week. When do you think Jake's going to sit up and get his milestones back? Mm-hmm. And, they don't really look you in the eye and you don't really get an answer. But it took me a long time to sort of recognize, okay, there's no answer. That's an answer.
Right.
And then also realizing that, wait a minute, like, I don't need him to go back to who he was. I'm accepting where he is right now. And once the whole family is there, this sounds corny, but it's almost when you start to live that life that you're supposed to live. Because when you're trying to change it, you're not. You're just, you're focused on what you're missing, not what you have. Mm-hmm. And once you accept what you have,
you just adapt. And
it's pretty damn great. It
really is.
It's, I think people want to feel sorry, but it's not.
And don't get me wrong, I have my days where I am mad at the world and I don't want to talk to anybody. Nothing you say is going to make me happy today. And I'm not even just, I feel like that's a way for anybody, not just a child, that has severe disabilities. But, there are days when I definitely get stuck in my own bubble. And I do think about the what ifs and the, what could have been and all this stuff. And I hate to use the word survival. I guess there's probably a better word than that. But every day it's a battle of survival. And, I think in the end, we've done pretty good.
I always think of, I think it was the fifth year of the Family Fun Day. And there's this great picture of Abbey and Caitlin.
It's hanging up on my fridge still to this day.
Such a good picture. Every time it comes up, it brings me such joy. So Caitlin unfortunately passed away 2 or 3 years ago. I have no sense of
I think
time.
it was probably almost about 4 at this point.
Did they know each other?
So we actually met Becky at Abbey and her were both recipients of the marathon dance when they were.
Oh, okay.
Abbey was 3, I think. But then we reconnect, so we talked, text here and there, and then we reconnected through Jake's Help from Heaven Family Fun Day.
Because Caitlin was at Prospect at the same time as Jake.
Yes, that I knew.
And I remember Jake came home one day from Prospect with a birthday invitation, and it was from Caitlin.
Oh, really?
And then I didn't put that together until Becky applied to something from Jake's, and then she was like, FYI, I used to sit in the room at Prospect where you could watch with you. And I was like it was just a little bit like worlds colliding because it was like pre-life and then this life. It was just so special to me, really. I was like, oh my God, when Jake brought that invitation home, even though it didn't mean anything to him, you know, and I don't even think we went to the party. But it was just this feeling of oh, my kid got invited to a party.
Right.
Because some of that is hard too, right? That's the part and I would always keep that because it sounds so vain to worry about stuff like that in the scheme of things. But it's another part of the process of, I don't know if it's grief or what it is, but just, wait, it's not what I thought it was going to be. Or it's not quote unquote normal. I just think of that picture because they're both smiling and they're just... It's just such a beautiful
I think
picture.
they're even holding hands, I think. I'm pretty sure.
And to me, it captured that event, right? Because the event was our biggest fundraiser for Jake's Help from Heaven, but it was also this coming together of, I always say, family, friends, donor, sponsors, but most importantly, our families. Sometimes people will ask me how many kids I have, and I say 1. I don't want to talk about. And it's not that, obviously, I spend most of what I have turned into, career is the wrong word, but what I've turned into my life's work is talking about Jake. So it's not that I want to diminish or hide or anything, but sometimes it's exhausting. And it's not just exhausting, but just people don't get it, and you don't want to explain it. Sometimes the explaining to people is what exhausts me. It's not the talking about. It's
1,000%. Especially when you say, I have a disabled child. I feel like people are automatically geared towards autistic or ADHD, and it's very different than what we go through, Actually, just this morning, a customer asked me how my Christmas was and how old. She's like, oh, well, how old are your kids? And I was like, well, 18 and 15. And that was just where I left it. I didn't.
There's nothing. Yeah.
I didn't say, well, Abby does not get what Christmas is at all, really, other than looking at the lights,
another day.
Yeah. And, she doesn't ever know how many presents she has under the tree or whatever. That's never been a thing for her. You got to pick and choose. And another customer a couple weeks ago, he did know about Abbey, and he came in with a card with over $100 in it for me. You meet really amazing people, and you meet some really crappy people too.
It's a great reminder because sometimes it's so easy to just focus on the people who say the wrong thing. Our kids bring out the good in a lot of people.
Definitely do. Until you're in that position, nobody could ever understand what it's like. And I used to... same way with you and Jake, I used to think about Caitlin and Becky, we have always known Abbey to be who she is, where Jake and Caitlin were very healthy, vibrant children. And I always had even more compassion because I'm like, how do you go from that to that? It's huge difference. I talk to 100 people every morning in my job because I'm an opener for Stewart's, and some of them do know about Abbey, but I don't think anybody truly gets the magnitude of what it is. I went to my girlfriend's in North Carolina for the weekend, and Bo and I had been away from Abbey for a week together when she was little. We went on a cruise, but I'd never been away from Abbey when Dad was in charge. And I am very much in
Well,
control.
take the special needs out of it. Sometimes dad in charge in general.
Right. I was like, please make
No
sure
offense.
she
Yeah,
matches
yeah,
to
yeah.
go to school. But I am a control freak. I admit it. So to be away and give the reins up to Dad and Andrew was huge for me. And I mean, I had a best time. I can't wait to do it again. Actually, I think we need to pick that.
I always think too, because we're Facebook friends, and I love that you love concerts.
I love it. I will admit I'm getting older. I don't know if concerts are exactly my thing as much anymore. Literally, I'm like, oh, what happened here?
We're not we don't bounce back like we used to.
No. But yeah, Bo and I have definitely learned it's important. He's going ice fishing this Sunday. I'll be home with Ab, hanging out. We don't always get that opportunity to do stuff together out. Thankfully, we've come to a place where watching a show on Netflix and having a yummy dinner is just as good to us as
Sometimes
going out
better.
and seeing the lights, and taking on the town. But it is very important to still be your own person in this situation. And there's times I've definitely struggled with that. I think I've gotten a lot better at it as the years have gone on.
I think it's huge what you just said too, though. A, as a parent in general, but B, as a special needs parent, it's so easy. Like, even if you didn't start out a control freak, you become a control freak.
You have to.
Like, there's no way you can't in
Right.
this life. But to be able to still find yourself, and whether it's, I used to sometimes just get in the shower and just turn on music and just stand there under the shower for 10 minutes just to like center yourself, right? Or read a book. Like, I remember I stopped reading for years. I loved reading, so just finding something. A, you're better for it, but then you're better for them too.
Right.
Right. I think sometimes we get so locked into like just go, 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 but that pause can help you be better at all aspects of it.
And it is so very, Abby's on a strict feed routine, a strict bed routine. Like, I constantly watch the clock.
Yep.
Even when Abby's at school during the day, I'm like, it's 11. That's when Abby's feed needs to start. And
Or then you worry, right? You're like, oh, I hope they're feeding.
right. But yeah, I've definitely learned to appreciate the small stuff a lot more than I probably ever would have. I'm going to say it this way. It gets easier and it gets better. The beginning is very, very overwhelming. It's so overwhelming. I look back to not only did Abby's paperwork say she was going to die at home, it also said that we should put her in a home. And obviously I was like, yeah, no way. I will say I could not put Abby in a home, but I understand how people need that. I'm thinking if 20 years from now, if we're still caring for Abby this way and Bo and I are both 20 years older, what is our life going to look like? You can't always answer the what ifs. And life's going to throw you a curveball every once in a while, but overall it does get easier and it gets better. Learn to ask for help when you need it. Take a deep breath. Deep breath is huge. Get a hot tub. It's my sanity, I'm telling you.
It's perfect. Thank you for listening to A Place of Yes. Please follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, leave us a thumbs up, or leave us a comment. We would appreciate all that you can do. If you really like this episode, please share it with a friend or two. For more information and to leave us any feedback, please reach out to us at jakeshelpfromheaven.org.